Hi everyone, hi Eugene. Thanks for the invite to the Forensic Photography Symposium. I'm Alex Harvey and I'm the Creative Director at RiVR, and we've got an array of cameras to talk to you about today, and we're going to be talking about how and the different types of cameras that we use for capturing immersive video content. Some of our clients are in the blue light services, but some are also not. We're just going to go through the basics of the cameras and a bit of a timeline from start to finish. I've got Tyrone with me. Tyrone, introduce yourself. What do you do at RiVR?
I'm Tyrone Leon Fernandez. I work as one of the immersive film creators here. And we've got quite a good number of cameras from really early in the life of RiVR and what we used to use for 360 video, all the way through now till the immersive 3D 180 setups that we use.
And I think that it's important to start right at the very top. When people talk about VR video, they often think about playing virtual reality games, but we think that virtual reality video or immersive video is a massive part that has been sort of stepped over slightly, but now with all the clients that we've got in the immersive landscape, we're seeing a bit of a resurgence in video, and we spend months and weeks, we've just been in America training people on how to use these cameras, but not only to use these cameras to look at content on a two-dimensional screen, but we like people to look at the content in immersive screens, so in VR headsets. And we're going to go through, probably going back to like 2015, 2016, the cameras that we used to use, and then going much more into the modern day cameras that we use now, and some of the procedures and methods and types of devices we might use to mount those cameras. So I guess if we go right back, we start looking at things like this. And this is the Samsung, I think it's called the Samsung Gear 360. This one's a little bit melted because it's been in a fire. But we used to put these in all of our burn scenes. Whenever we were doing a fire with the fire service, we would mount this in the middle of the room, press record, and then hopefully the camera wouldn't get burnt, but it'd give us a really good 360 image of the fire and the smoke and pattern behavior inside the container. The only thing is that the resolution on these cameras in sort of 2016, 17, maybe 2015, the resolution wasn't as high as the ones we get today. So that's where we see that improvement graph that's just got better and better. That was the Samsung camera. Then people started moving on to more things like this, and there was another similar camera that was called the Ricoh Theta. I don't actually know the name of, the Ricoh Theta actually came first before these, but this is the Ricoh Theta. This was really good for 360 photos. And obviously, I'm pretty sure everyone's aware of immersive cameras at the moment, but if you're going to be taking a video with these type of cameras, it takes one image from one side and one image from the other and stitches it together in a sphere. And these pieces of content that come out of these cameras can be used on a tablet or a laptop or a VR headset. But these are only, they're not three-dimensional. These are just flat 360s. So imagine your head inside the sphere with the video or photo wrapped around your head. That's what these cameras do. That one was really good for photos. This one was better for video. But still, when this came out with the Gear VR, the quality inside this headset, when you viewed this, wasn't amazing. Wasn't very good.
Like just kind of cutting into there, and I think that what we'll probably do as the sort of next sort of 20 minutes or so go on is sort of just go back and forth between us about the cameras that we've used, the cameras that Alex may be more familiar with versus me, and why we use them. And obviously we'll go through that history, that historical order of stuff. But, you know, one of the first times that I ever saw immersive video content was in a Gear VR Samsung headset in this holder, shot on, you know, something like this. They also brought another generation of this out afterwards. They really kind of tried to put this in consumers' hands because obviously everyone has a phone, and it was like, how do we now make this cool media that we can put the phone into this holder and watch it? And you know, the opportunity to bundle a camera with a headset or you know, purchase it at a reasonable price. You know, the Samsungs were really, really good.
It was a nice idea. The phone clipped into this headset. This was normally like a Samsung S6 or S7 or S8. They would clip in, close it down. This used to get a bit hot though sometimes, so that would be one of the problems that you might get, overheating with it. But this was going back to sort of 2015, 16, quite a long time back. Things have moved on quite a lot since then. But as that was the norm back then, we then had to up the resolution a little bit. But to up the resolution, we had to up the cameras that would be around your head. And so we started making 3D printed rigs. There's some in the table in front of you where we would slot cameras into the 3D printed rig and make a 360 dome out of GoPros. But that would be very sort of time consuming on the post-processing afterwards. And we'd have to take the memory cards out of 6 different cameras and then stitch them all together, making sure that the image was all frame by frame synced up. So again, that was not ideal. That was the 3D printed version. And then GoPro came out with this, which was the GoPro Omni. So in this rig, you would get 6 of these cameras, mount them in the rig, give them a specific firmware, and then there was one cable that came off the internals of this unit. And now, instead of having a massive load of cables like a big snake's wedding for the previous rig, with them all charging different battery banks at the same time, this was all in one rig and you just charge one plug. It was absolutely groundbreaking when we first had this out. I think we took this on the cruise ship and started filming a lot of 360 video for Thompson Holidays and TUI. But around this time, we were also filming fire scenes with the fire service.
Also just sort of for understanding timelines, what age of GoPro was in this rig?
Yeah, Hero 4.
So, you know, we're on Hero 12 now.
Yeah.
So Hero 12 being the most current model GoPro, this isn't even waterproof, is it? That's a Hero 3, that one, to be fair. But from that standpoint, you're looking at something which, you know, had to be in its own cage or case if you wanted to use it as a proper kind of action camera. You know, we're sticking like a ton of them into basically a sort of custom-made frame.
It was really handy.
And also bearing in mind, like, there wasn't many options that were, you know, affordable to up that resolution. And also, those cameras have to be stitched together. And so there was no proprietary software that GoPro brought out, I presume, that allowed you to stitch it.
There wasn't before this. Oh no, the stitching software did come out with the Omni.
Oh, did it?
They brought out firmware for each camera, so you'd update each camera memory card, stick it in the rig, and then it would frame by frame sync them all together with one press of the button. And we put the yellow on here, meaning that this is the one that everyone should look at when they're looking at it. But yeah, they synced them all together, so it was really handy, one button press, and then the software to sync it together. But it's still 6 memory cards.
And also the software maybe wasn't perfect as well. I think sometimes you still saw a bit of a stitch line.
Yeah,
you know, it wasn't bang on.
But you would look around, and it's the same as looking around your world now with one eye closed. If you shut one eye and look around in a sphere, that's the same as you get from this rig or any of these other rigs until we move on to the 3D world. We call it 360 flat.
Yes.
So this and these ones are all 360 flat. And then I guess we can move on to 3D. Well, we talk about 3D, it changes things a lot.
Yeah, well, like I would imagine that then kind of like moving into new territory, Insta360 as a company came onto the scene. Their main focus specifically was making 360 cameras that would give you better resolution than anything that had ever come before it. Also giving you software that would allow you to stitch this. And this is one of their pros. This was called the Pro originally. Insta360 Pro had 6 lenses, cost considerable thousands of pounds. And
this was about 6,000, I think, when it first came out.
And again, it required 1 full-size SD card and 6 micro SD cards.
That was always confusing to me.
And it also had a very challenging way of being able to get the software off, all the stuff off to put into their stitching software. So it was very difficult and not very consumer friendly in any way, shape or form. But we did get a higher resolution out of this camera. But it did evolve into another version. But before we sort of jump into Pro 2, which was the sequel, they did start a consumer line of 360 cameras. So,
but I guess you could talk about them in different categories. These two that you've got over this side are 3D, or can be 3D cameras, whereas these can never be 3D cameras.
No.
And these are always I call it 360 flat video, and this is 3D. It could be 3D 180 or 3D 360.
Yeah, and I think that because of the amount of lenses that are on here, and you've got 2 lenses there that you could utilise for some level of disparity, trying to use the software to give you this kind of pseudo 3D 360 kind of content, it really kind of upped the levels. It may have dropped the resolution a tiny bit to give you 3D, but you did feel like you got a bit more lifelike depth out of it. But still hard to process because they're pro cameras at the end of the day. But we can come back to this one, because I would say that sort of like you go Insta Pro, and then, you know, let's drop down to kind of what the first consumer one that they brought out.
Just quickly, this is a good visualization of how you just mentioned that. If we were trying to get 3D 360, this is basically what the camera, what your head does when it's inside that bubble. Yeah. It basically gets a 3D angle from turning this around wherever you go. So I guess we're just showing you the differences between them all, because they are very much different shooting techniques from this to this.
Yeah.
This is a lot bigger. Would you have to have the tripod out of the rig, or can you get rid of the below point afterwards for these and these?
Yeah, there are techniques in post-production where we can either put something called a nadir, that basically is almost like a circle around the tripod that it's on, just to kind of make it something that's a little bit less distracting. If you want to try and make 360 video as immersive as possible, sometimes looking at a tripod when you look down totally messes with your brain, because you obviously know that you should be looking down at like your body. So, you know, 360 as a medium was the kind of beginnings of our kind of immersive production work that we did. But we knew as a company that if we ever wanted to kind of like evolve how people could access immersive content and be able to sort of output it to headsets like this, there needed to be a way to be able to distribute it. There needed to be an output to see it in its true form, especially if it was 3D.
I guess that moved into what we did for Thompson Holidays, because we allowed them to have an output for it, which was syncing 4 VR headsets together so that we could have 4 people trying to book a holiday, all watching the same cruise ship or airline extra legroom. That's what we shot this. We shot the stuff on this one with, but these ones obviously gave us 3D, and we can talk about that. But coming back to these ones, they've got a range of consumer.
Yeah, and this is it. This is kind of where, you know, RiVR as a company have been renowned for creating a product that allows multiple users to watch this type of immersive video in the way it's been intended, which is, as Alex said, you know, you're basically looking through the eyes of the camera lenses, looking around, up, down, left, right, behind you, and if it's flat, you know, when I say flat, it has no depth to it. You know, you have no problem being able to maybe translate that over to an iPad or a tablet or a phone or a screen. You can move around with a cursor, you can move your phone around and look around that environment instead of your head being the moving part of it. But when you move into 3D stuff, it becomes more challenging, and that's where you need to use VR headsets.
That's a good point. If you're shooting on 3D, you have to be viewing it on a VR headset. Absolutely. If you're shooting 360 flat, it doesn't matter. Whether you're in a 360 headset or a laptop or a tablet or a phone.
The only thing that matters in terms of if you view it in a VR headset, you get the full real world scale of stuff. So if you watch it on the screen, you're going to be in a box, a rectangle, that's what you're stuck with. But in a headset, you've got full field of view. You can look up, down, left, right, and you'll have peripheral. So that's where this immersive type video is why it's so powerful for us, why we use these cameras, why they're the most important part of the business, because we produce an output product that will allow multiple people to view this in VR, specifically VR. But with that came the need for them to be able to shoot their own 360. And in the early days, maybe gear wouldn't have been good enough. The Gear VR camera wouldn't have been good enough.
They were doing it a little bit for Thompson.
Little bit.
But it wasn't very good. Not as good as it could be.
Yeah, but then Insta360 sort of sweep the market with their own consumer grade cameras at a, you know, action camera level of affordability.
What sort of resolutions they range from, this to this?
So actually, these two are the same.
Okay. What is it?
This is 5.7K. This was the Insta 1X. This was the original one. It's got 2 lenses, front and back. So you can kind of have a look at this one. As you can see, the one downside to 360 cameras like this and any 360 camera is that the lenses that are on them are exceptionally wide angle, and so they protrude quite a lot from the body of the camera. So there is always this potential of the lenses being damaged. But If you look after them well, you know, you're going to get
talking because you've got a damaged lens on there.
Well, and the fact that you and me have definitely, even as professional capture, you know, people have damaged lenses because unfortunately there's just that much risk with these types of cameras.
And you're on about things like, if this is on a tripod, I mean, like this tripod here, and this was blowing in the wind, this wouldn't be ideal. I mean, we've both had that in the past, that this on top of this falling over, obviously that doesn't end well, so cracks. I guess you've got a lot of these hoods that you can wear. On the top.
That's it. You know, a lot of these cameras came with some accessories to protect the lenses as best as possible. But as someone that wants to go out and capture their own content, we had to also educate the customers that we work with that wanted to use these types of cameras to create their own immersive content and give them the best chance of being able to get the best quality. So yeah, we had the 1X original one. This didn't have any kind of water protection. It was, you needed to buy housing for it, a bit like a GoPro. And then they kind of upped it and upped the game with the 1X2, which is what Alex has got in his hand. You've got a big colour screen on the front of it, a big circular one, and had a lot more water resistance. Maybe not going to go deep sea diving with it. So holding that up side by side with this one, there's a bigger round screen. On this one, it's just purely a black with white digital kind of like text that would go on it. This is actually a preview screen. These also came with associated apps that would allow you to use them as a remote and be able to do remote view. Because bearing in mind, when you shoot 360 video, you shoot everything. So by shooting everything, you are going to be in it. So you can't, you can hide, that's what you need to do, but this is where the talk about if this was on a tripod and it got a gust of wind and it blew over, you know, you'd be like, well, surely you'd be holding it, manning it, being nearby, and that's the thing, you need to be out of shot if you don't want to be in it. So yeah, these cameras will capture absolutely everything, and because of that, it's good to have a preview when you're away from the camera hiding, using the applications.
On the phone or tablet?
On the phone or tablet. Then they brought out the Insta3, which has a huge rectangular screen on the front of it, and that was a really good improvement on consumer tech.
I was just going to say then that actually you were talking about placing the camera down and capturing, and it's actually quite easy to capture.
Yeah.
I actually say to people a lot that it's easier to capture than normal video.
It is.
If you're trying to shoot normal 2D flat 16:9 video, you're going to have to take that away and do an edit and cut from scene to scene to scene. With this, you're literally walking in with a tripod to a scene, whether that's a crime scene or a fire scene or some training you might be doing. You're walking in, putting the tripod down, pressing capture on the camera, and that is capturing the point of view of that camera from every angle. So you're actually capturing more than the human eye of a 2D film can capture, but it's actually easier to do because you don't want, in the edit, you don't want to cut 2 times every second and make a really fast edit. You probably, what's your rules now? Mine used to be 15 seconds for every shot. Maybe it's a bit less now.
Yeah, I think that it's really dependent on what you're looking at, and if you're filming a scenario or real world scenario and you want to capture it for, you know, the length of time it's there, you can do. But yeah, normally sort of the consumer cameras have got some limitations. You have to be honest with people and turn around and say that these are very much to capture the highlights of a space and create a piece of content that actually, like you say, is more simple than capturing just normal video. Because remember, you've got to think about where that camera is, and that camera needs to most of the time be at a comfortable level for whoever's going to view it in a VR headset.
Oh, you mean opposed to being on the floor or in the sky?
Yeah.
It has to be at eye height for whether you're sitting or standing.
You're not watching it in a rectangle that is a TV, a tablet or a phone. You're watching it on your face, and because of that reason, you don't want your chin on the floor. You don't want it to be miles in the sky if you can help it, if you don't like heights. So, you know, things like attaching it to a drone would be something that you do, very short burst clips of that if you wanted an overview. But most of the time, it's like average seating height, average standing height, and giving you a more real-world perspective. Now, you can break the rules, but it doesn't feel comfortable, and that's where there's a massive difference between shooting on a traditional camera or on a phone or a GoPro or whatever versus using a 360 camera specifically.
Get a drone and go up and do a panoramic 360 photo from a drone, because whether that's a car crash or a vehicle or a house that might have burnt down or a crime scene, just to get that spatial 360 is really handy. You can do it with most of the DJI drones now. Put it up in the air, obviously around safe flying conditions. Tap the panorama button. It takes, I don't know, about 10 or 15 photos with your drone automatically. Comes back down, you land it, you take the files out, take that 360 photo and stick it inside a VR headset.
Yeah.
Or better still, inside our product, RiVR Link, which synchronizes 15 headsets together. But any headset will do it, and you can literally look around like a bird from any angle. I just think we haven't bought a drone today, but that is one of the things. 360 photos in headsets are probably very overlooked as well as video.
So I just wanted to kind of like evolve the sort of like understanding of the resolutions as well. So the consumer grade cameras for the most part at the very beginning were maybe about 4K. Maybe that output was 4K. Then it went to 5.7K. So you had a little bump in resolution. You know, that gave you a little bit more. And then this one's gone a tiny bump really to 6. Now this one is
low light.
This is the 1-inch lens. So if you look at the difference between the lenses, this is a huge lens compared to this one, which means it's got a bigger sensor in it than this one as well. And then professional grade cameras, we're going on the Pro 2 at 8K.
But then we're waiting for the next bit, the next bump again, which I think we talk about this being easy to capture, and this is like ready for everyone. Yeah. Then this is a little bit harder for people, it's a bit bigger. And then we go next step up, I think it is a little bit harder when we talk about 3D 180. So do you want to bring those cameras in and move on to that? And 3D 180, it's got obvious by the name, I guess, but you don't see anything behind you. All you see is 3D 180 in front of your eyes inside a headset. So you don't get to look behind you. Behind you is black. But what this allows us to concentrate the pixels further on the 180 forward. Yeah. So we're not wrapping 360 3D around the whole of the screens inside here. We're doing less, denser pixels, and I think the image looks absolutely amazing from what Ty's going to talk about now.
Yeah, so let's kind of understand the medium. So you, like I've said before, you've got 360 video. All of these cameras on this side were all 360. So capturing absolutely everything, utilizing either 2 lenses, 6 lenses or more. All of this stuff, unlike traditional video, has an extra step that needs to happen, which is that with more lenses means there's more footage to stick together. There's more things that have to band-aid this footage together to make it work. So you have to do capture, then a middle step, which is the stitching software. You put all of this into your computer. And remember, the computer needs to have some horsepower to be able to do all of this and play these high resolutions. You then leap to another type of immersive media, which is 3D 180, as Alex has said. And Insta came out with a camera initially. Okay. They brought this one out, which was the Insta360 Evo. And as you can see, it's got 2 lenses on it, but this time it's not back-to-back. Although actually this was a bit of a hybrid, because it gave you the opportunity to be able to shoot both 3D and 3D 180 and 360 in the same camera. It was almost like early days of trying to migrate you to a different form of media. So look, you've got a lens back-to-back, so you can shoot 360.
Bit like this one.
Bit like that one. But then you could unlatch it and you could then sort of lock it together and you could then shoot 180 3D, although it was still only 5.7K, so quite low res, and the lenses are really small. So the quality wasn't amazing, but it did push all of that resolution in front of you, and it didn't capture anything behind you, and you got a bit of depth. So this is the kind of first start for us in 3D 180.
And that's moved, that we're seeing a resurgence with that when we talk about Canon after what they brought out.
Well, we grew a relationship with Canon initially. We were talking about a lot of stuff that we did in other areas of RiVR in terms of our photogrammetry work. But then they said, we are going to be making something that's immersive, an immersive product that's going to work with our consumer, or should we say, like our professional, should I say, bodies that are available for consumers to use. And we found out they were going to come up with this, which is the Canon dual fisheye lens.
How long have we been, sorry, I jumped in there.
No, you're
Canon
all good.
What?
This is the Canon dual fisheye lens. This is basically, as Alex has said, you look at that 2 lenses like they're your eyes. You've got a left and right eye. You're going to get basically stereo video out of this, but with 2 exceptionally wide-angle lenses. But video like this is not old. People have been making kind of rigs, old rigs, out of like 2 cameras, 2 wide-angle lenses, and it being really challenging to be able to put it all together and do that stitch. So Canon made it easier. So they then said their R5 camera, which we're shooting on today, was the first camera that was able to shoot 8K, and this was the lens that would go on it. So you'd shoot 8K, 3D, 180, and you'd get a lot of the features out of one body, one sensor, and super high resolution 3D video. 3D 180 also has rules, unlike traditional film or video, where you need to make sure your world is level. So as we would put this lens onto this camera and think about your eyes on your neck, your head on your neck, and your eyes kind of a very good stabilizer, like a gimbal. You know, your neck would keep you level as best as it can and make sure that you're not feeling sick. This tip this way or that way or that way or that way would bake in the level of the world that you were in. So we had to be so careful as we trialed and errored this lens and camera system. And, you know, we're, like I say, nearly 3 years into using this, and we have some amazing content we've shot with this lens and camera body.
I was going to say, let's go through some, just because this one has been used so much. We can go through some of the people that have had some content shot on this.
Yeah.
So, like, call out the ones. I can talk a few, like Riot Police at Gravesend, Tesla, the Fremont factory.
Absolutely.
Hoover Dam tour, Las Vegas tour.
And I took this with me everywhere I go. Like, I've got an R5 and I take a lens with me to a lot of the travel that I do around the world. And if there's an opportunity to capture something interesting, I will, whether it's just landmarks and the scenery, like I did when I went to New York last year, or it's interviewing people and giving people that kind of face-to-face eye contact, feel like you're in that space kind of thing, like we did at Gravesend.
But this is an iPhone. And when you flick this iPhone to be on video mode, and is it only on iPhone 15 Pro Max?
Currently at the moment, only on iPhone 15. I think it's just iPhone 15 Pro.
Okay. Well, it's got a little button at the bottom that allows spatial video. So this then uses the top two cameras in the iPhone to give you basically a little version of what you've just shown with the 3D 180 camera, a little bit like this one. But Apple are being quite clever about this, and on the screen they have a little level, so it's got like a stabilizer to make sure you're completely level. But what's happening with this is it's interesting format, because you can film it on your phone, you can view it on your phone, it puts it in a special little folder, but it won't look like anything other than normal video until you view it into a Vision Pro headset.
Yeah.
That's when you're going to see it. But then talk about the bounding box. It's going to surprise some people.
Just to give people a bit of context to understanding that, you know, we've worked with headset manufacturers like Meta, with Pico and other headset manufacturers. And we're now coming into a new stage in 2024 where Apple have joined in with this, and they're giving it their own terms. They want to show people how they can walk into this kind of immersive world of content and entertainment. Spatial video will be a bit like that in terms of the cinema kind of feeling of 3D in a box. But if there's any shake or any movement and you're watching it in a headset, you're not going to feel sick, because it's only a window. It's a pane looking into a past memory that you recorded.
Basically a stabilised pane.
Yeah, with depth. And so you'll be able to shoot lots of content with an iPhone. You can also use the Vision Pro headset to capture those kind of memories as well. So the massive difference, there's 3 types of immersive media now. You've got 360 cameras that shoot everything around you. You can leap to more 3D 360 as well. You then go to this, which is 3D 180, which is purely just half of that sphere, and you get some really good resolution and really good depth and amazing content from that, with a few caveats in terms of the rules of how you can shoot it to make sure that you keep everyone happy and not make them feel, you know, sick. But then you then go to spatial video, which I think is going to be the most accessible for everyone at the very beginning if they're a consumer wanting to start this life. They don't understand it. And again, there's not going to be the same level of steps. There's no need to stitch. It will be ready to go. It's just transferable to the Apple Vision Pro headset or any Apple headset that will come out in the future.
Thanks for having us, Eugene, and everyone. Hopefully that is informative and giving you a bit of information about all these cameras that we've played with. If you've got any more questions, message me or Ty on LinkedIn or reach out to Eugene. But yeah, nice to chat. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Cheers.